Hi everybody, I'm Skip Elsheimer. Welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime Streaming Show, where we watch old 16mm films, and that one was part of the Religious Motion Pictures group, and they this is obviously made to, one, show life on an Indian reservation, two, to raise money for missions there. I don't know if any of you watched on FX Reservation Dogs. It is easily one of my most favorite shows on television. It is very funny and poignant, and also incredibly irreverent. And there's a whole episode about these religiously run schools or orphanages. It's not very positive. Alright, anyways, it's time to watch zoo animals in our storybooks. There's so many zoo animal films in Coronet, Encyclopedia Britannica. It's just they went to the zoo, they just shot an insane amount of footage, and then they're just doing these weird wraparounds to get kids excited. So there's zoo babies, and then there's morning at the zoo, evening at the zoo, visiting the zoo. It's really kind of lazy, but when you're a kid, you love going to the zoo. It's kind of exciting. All right, so here's zoo animals in our storybooks. Enjoy.
Have you ever heard or read any stories about animals? Do you know this one about a baby elephant? Or this one about a giraffe? Here's a pretty scene from Bambi, the story of a deer. Have you read a story about a sleepy little lion? What is this animal? Reading animal stories can be even more fun when you know something about the animals, and you can act out the stories, and even make up your own stories. Here are some drawings of storybook animals we can see at the zoo. The first one is from the story Goldilocks and the Three Bears. It's a picture of Mama Bear and Baby Bear, but who's missing? Papa Bear. Here we see him walking home to his family. But real bears at the zoo are not always so friendly. These are black bears. Like the three bears in the story, the bears at the zoo are almost always hungry and always begging for a snack. Did you know that bears like all kinds of sweet things? In the zoo, they like candy corn, peanuts, yes, even ice cream. Everybody likes to watch baby bears. In stories, they're always playful and bouncy. The mother bear watches over her cubs until they are big enough to take care of themselves. The bears in animal stories do many different things. There are some stories about bears that can climb rocks. Some stories are about bears that can dance in a circus. Here are some more bears that might be able to dance. I'm sure you know what kind they are. Polar bears. You can recognize them because of their white fur. They live in cold, wintry lands near the North Pole. You'll almost always find them in stories about Eskimos and Alaska. In order to get food, they have to know how to dive. Good catch. If he weren't so fierce, he might be a good ball player. Now that we have seen some bears, don't you think reading stories about bears will be more fun? Let's see what's next. Oh, the fox and the crow. In most stories, the fox thinks very well of himself. He's clever and sly. What do you think of this real fox at the zoo? Do you think he's trying to trick us by running in a circle? Have you ever heard people say, clever as a fox? See his quick listening ears and his sharp bright eyes. Wouldn't you like to read some more stories about the clever fox? Oh, the Wolf of Little Red Riding Hood. We all know this story. Do you think he looks greedy enough? Fierce enough? Do you think he looks like a wolf at the zoo? Now that's interesting. The wolf sounds like a dog. In fact, they look something like police dogs. But in the forests where they live and hunt for food, and in nearly all stories, they're much too wild to be good pets. Do you know a musical story about a boy named Peter who captured a wolf? Now, the king of the jungle is the lion, and there are many stories about lions. Even in the zoo, the lion looks like a king. His walk is slow and stately. He's sure no other animals will start a fight with him, because if they do, they'll just be asking for trouble. Of course, even lordly, dignified lions have to play. Or are they playing? Yes, they are. Do you know the story called Andy and the Lion? Do you know any stories about tigers? Are they sly and clever? Does this tiger look like a good hunter? In stories, most animals are afraid of the tiger. Of course, these tiger cubs are just playing. Have you ever seen kittens playing this way? Why, look, the zookeeper doesn't seem to mind their playing at all. Wouldn't it be fun to read a story about tiger cubs growing up in the zoo to be full-grown tigers? My, just listen to him snarl. The tiger stripes help hide him from other animals in the jungle. Do you know of another animal that has bright stripes? The zebra, of course. And there's a story called Stripey, a Little Zebra. Stories tell us that zebras can run very fast on their strong hoofs. And they certainly can. Don't you think the zebra looks like a pony? In some stories, the zebra is a friend of the giraffe. Have you ever read about a giraffe having trouble finding something to eat? At the zoo, we can find out why. It's because he's so tall. Look how slowly and carefully they walk. Do you think you could walk like a giraffe? Oh, what a funny way to run. And see how the giraffes eat leaves and twigs high up in the trees. Now, there's a story about Cecily Giraffe and the 9 monkeys. And how many more stories there are about monkeys. Monkeys in the zoo, monkeys in the circus, monkeys with organ grinders. Look, this baby monkey could be playing cowboy, riding on his mother's back. Uh-oh, don't go too far away. Have you ever heard someone say he can climb like a monkey? Can you see the baby monkey drinking its mother's milk? Monkeys are quick to learn new things. This monkey is trying to fish something out of the water. Well, try again tomorrow. But pretty soon they're back to running and playing and all sorts of monkey business. That's why monkeys are so much fun to watch and so much fun to read about. Now let's see if your class can make up an animal story. Let's call it Bumble the Elephant. To find out something about elephants, let's go to the zoo. First of all, will your story be about big elephants or little elephants, like this one playing in a mud hole? Will your story elephant have the big ears of an African elephant or the smaller ears of an Indian elephant? And don't forget the sound of the elephant. Elephants are favorite story animals because they can do many things with their trunks, such as carrying hay and grass. The elephant also drinks with his trunk. And in circuses, they use their trunks to pick up heavy loads. If your story elephant is in a circus, he'll have to learn to dance on his dainty feet. Now you can begin your story of Bumble the Elephant. And when you've finished, you can draw some pictures of Bumble and make up songs and even make up an elephant dance. Shall we try it?
There I am. So yeah, I'm just looking at the database here. What to do at the zoo. Who's who in the Bronx Zoo? Z is for zoo. Zoo. Zoo animals, mammals. Zoo animals behind the scenes. Zoo animals of our storybooks, which we just saw. Zoo animals in rhyme. Zoo animals in the wild, apes. Zoo babies observing things around us. Zoo baby animals, zoo snakes and their relatives, the zoo, zoo's eye view, dark to dawn, and the zoos of the world. That's just ones that just start with Z. There are plenty of other films about zoos that I have. It's crazy. Okay. So behind me I have a film scanner, and we're going to watch this film. It's about Look Before You Eat. It's made by Churchill Films. Enjoy. Actually, I just realized something. I need to rewind it a little bit, so I'm going to rewind it. So it's going to play backwards, and it's going to play forwards. All right. Enjoy.
Ruby. Ja, zei ze mij net al afzemmen. Iets weer flash, this is. This is Channel 13. I'm not going to mess around with that man on the desk.
See why? American
Hawaii.
You've arrived. You're traveling with the right crowd this time, And the drink is Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is the right one for people on the go. Modern people, beautiful people. People who know what they want Coke. Because Coke has a tingling, upbeat taste. Keep plenty of Coke on hand and let the world know who you are.
These peas are so soft and squishy, Jerry. I don't know how you do it.
Oh, it's really nothing. I just practice.
Oh, you're a super cook.
Just wait. We've got something special for dessert.
Until very recently, almost everywhere in the world, including the United States, people mostly ate what their parents ate and their grandparents ate before them, with minor changes from generation to generation. There wasn't any conflict between what you should eat and what you wanted to eat, because basically you ate what was there. There usually wasn't more than enough food than you needed. Now you have a tremendous set of forces which are educating people in other ways. Television, which really is selling people on certain kinds of food products, and just the environment. All up and down the streets you get things like pizza shops and ice cream shops and donut shops, all of which are urging you to eat certain kinds of foods.
Well, for breakfast I usually have the potato chips and the soda and some candy, M&Ms.
For lunch, hamburgers, pizza, anything, you know. I'll have a pie today, though. Got the sugars.
I'm gonna have a hamburger, potato chips, fruit punch, and maybe some cookies or something else sweet, whatever they're gonna have.
For lunch, let me see, maybe a burrito, a sandwich, cream pie, a Sprite, and a bag of potato chips.
Well, I buy dinner for my family because my mom works, you know, so I have to buy it for her. And usually I buy frozen stuff like frozen pizzas, TV dinners, you know, stuff easy to cook.
Our eating habits have changed. Processed foods make up over half of what we eat. Fast food sales have doubled in 10 years. And snack foods have become a basic part of many diets. As a result of these and other changes, most of us eat too much sugar, salt, and fat, which increases the risk of certain diseases.
Well, the risk associated with the American diet, I think, is becoming very clear, and it comes from a variety of sources. But if you look at the disease patterns around the world where diets do differ, you find that the more the diet of a country approximates that of the United States, the more heart disease, the more cancer of certain types, diabetes, hypertension, and obesity all increase. Now, these diseases are the things that kill Americans.
We asked some students to try for 3 weeks to reduce the amount of sugar and salt they ate and to cut down on foods that are high in fat. They were asked to replace some foods that are high in sugar, salt, and fat with other foods.
I don't know. I'll be able to go through it, but it's going to be kind of hard.
I don't know. I eat a lot of sweets, too, so I think it's going to be very difficult for me to stay on this diet for the next 3 weeks, anyway.
You come to school and all they do is sell that junk food, so you really don't have a choice of whether or not what you want to eat.
It's going to be hard because I like stand food better than I do regular food. It's going to be hard, but I might can pull it off.
To find out why our diets have changed, we have to look behind the scenes in the food industry. First, we have to realize that food is a business. Most products on a market shelf are not there because they are nutritious, but because of successful marketing, sales promotion, and television advertising. Warner Isaac is a buyer for a supermarket chain. Food company salesmen come to him to try to persuade him to stock their products.
We're seeing 18 sales representatives on a normal interview day, and with 4 items per salesman, that's a total of 72 items just every week.
It behooves you, because of the job you're doing on the 1.5 ounce size, to sell as much of this as you can to get new consumers trying the product.
They put together a very efficient program of developing markets, and then behind that they put literally hundreds of millions of dollars of advertising.
Ad schedule to back up the product. And I had a couple of other new items that I wanted to show to you today, too.
This one here is beef and onion. It's going to be a new item added. We have 3 in the warehouse now: beef, chicken, and shrimp.
Well, that's one market that's busting wide open, huh?
Right.
It seems like everybody and their brother's in the instant noodle business.
Instant noodle business.
Companies like to say that they're serving the consumer need, that they're meeting consumer needs. But clearly there's no need for something like a pink cornflake. Nobody ever rushed into the store and said, bring me a pink cornflake. What a company does is it figures out something novel that nobody's had before, makes it, and then promotes it like crazy to try to get people to buy it.
Companies find that if they take some simple ingredients, put them in a fancy box with a clever name, and advertise them heavily, they can often generate enormous new sales. In a recent 2-year period, these 5 companies released over 300 completely new products. There are cereals for children that have artificial colorings and flavorings, which make a synthetic chocolate milk. Honey is added to baby cereal to make a product that appeals to parents. Quick, convenient soup, but less than half the nutritional value of regular soup. Dehydrated ice cream. French fries that you cook in a toaster. Unfortunately, the result of all this is to shift our diet away from basic foods. When was the last time you saw an advertisement for a carrot or broccoli? There is not much advertising for fruits and vegetables because we can't tell one company's product from another's.
Say, do you have any, are there any instructions for these?
The food industry would like you to forget how to use basic foods so they can do the processing for you. Then, through advertising, they can create a demand for their brand name. However, as the company processes the basic food, the cost per pound almost always goes up. And less desirable ingredients are often added. The nutritional value is usually changed. A potato has almost no fat. A potato chip is 65% fat. One nutrient that most of us get too much of is sodium. When we eat a potato, we only get a little bit of sodium. When we eat 10 potato chips, we get 100 times as much because of the added salt. There are lots of places other than markets where we buy food. But how much variety is available?
I like 2 large tomato juice.
Large what?
Tomato juice.
We don't sell tomato juice.
No, do you have any fruit or something like that, like an orange or an apple?
No fruit, apples, orange. Are you for real?
How about salads, something like that?
No.
All right, well, I'll have 2 Cokes.
One of the main problems is staying on the diet is when you go somewhere to try to, you know, find something that's not all piled with sugar and preservatives and stuff. You don't find too much of that. It's fresh fruit and vegetables.
In some places, not a single one of the foods offered for sale is nutritious. Can you imagine a snack bar that served only nutritious foods? it might not be so bad. What would happen if nutritious foods were offered for sale in vending machines? Would sales drop off? Would the food be boring? Well, in Washington, D.C., they tried it.
Well, in Washington, what we did was get rid of all the garbage that we were selling to young people. And I call it garbage because that's just what it is. And by garbage, I mean soda pop, I mean potato chips, I mean candy. And garbage is defined as something that will do nothing but add to your calorie level but does not add to your nutrient level. So we felt it was best that we immediately, subsequent to a long history of doing the wrong thing, get rid of the junk that we were selling to young people. The school system, as we see it, has an obligation to do that. So we replaced that garbage, we replaced that junk with some more nutritious food items like frozen yogurt bars, like unsalted nuts, a good source of protein, like fruits and fruit juices. And so far, the reception has been fantastic. Young people are buying it at a greater rate even than they were buying the other stuff that was worth less, surprisingly to many people.
Changing your eating habits may seem difficult, but most diet-related health problems seem to come from eating too much of three things: sugar, salt, and fat. To eat less sugar may be the most difficult change for many people.
Yeah, it seems like everything's piled with the sugars.
Right.
And first ingredient sugar, then the next piles and piles. They keep on pouring the sugar in there.
I looked at my cereals, and they were all piled with sugar. On the top of them, they go 80 essential vitamins, and then when you read on the side, all the little sugar.
Only 25% of the sugar we eat is that which we add ourselves. The rest is hidden in foods. Who would guess that a cereal named for its vitamin content would have a higher percentage of sugar than a bowl of candy? Ingredients are always listed in order on a package by weight. This product is sold as part of a good breakfast. Yet 3 of the top 5 ingredients are different kinds of sugar. A breakfast bar or a candy bar. Much of our sugar comes from soft drinks. In 1935, each person in the United States drank an average per year of 40 cans of soft drink. By 1960, average consumption had gone up to 145 cans per year. Today, the average is over 300 cans per person per year. One result of all the sugar we consume is rampant tooth decay. An international study done several years ago showed the relation of sugar consumption to tooth decay. In the Far East, where yearly sugar consumption per person averaged from 12 to 32 pounds per year, less than 5% of the teenage population had any tooth decay. In South America, where annual sugar consumption averaged from 44 to 88 pounds, less than 13% of teenagers had any tooth decay. By contrast, today in the United States, where consumption of sugars per person averages 120 pounds, over 97% of teenagers have decayed teeth. High sugar consumption increases the risk of diabetes and is linked to obesity, a common health problem in the United States. It may surprise some people that salt can contribute to health problems, but on average, we eat 2 to 3 times as much salt as our body needs. It's a taste we've gotten hooked on, and as a result, food companies add it to many processed foods. While fresh produce has no added salt, frozen may have a little, and canned foods much more.
Pass the salt, please. Thank you, Lisa.
Some people add salt without even tasting their food first. The problem is that excessive salt gives us too much sodium. For many people, too much sodium seems to be related to hypertension, high blood pressure, which increases the risk of heart attack and stroke.
Chris, salt? Thanks.
If we cut down on salt, we may begin to discover the real taste of foods. Though we need some fat, many nutritionists think Americans get too much. We get it from many different places. Fat is in all dairy products, but we can get low-fat versions of some. Salad oils are 100% fat, so most salad dressings are high in fat. There are a lot of hidden fats in foods. Pastries have a high amount. Chocolate is over 50% fat. We get a lot of fat from meat. Both pork and beef are high in fat, especially a kind known as saturated fat. The problem with eating too much saturated fat is that it's linked to high levels of cholesterol in the blood and a disease called atherosclerosis. This is a cross-section of a normal blood vessel. In atherosclerosis, the walls of the blood vessel become coated and eventually closed off by fatty deposits, and the risk of heart attacks is increased.
No, I think the point that ought to be emphasized is that we're not talking about eliminating meat from the diet or eliminating hamburgers. What we are talking about is some modest reduction and trying to select products that have a lower fat content. Now, if McDonald's wants to produce a low-fat hamburger, they obviously can do it. And in fact, they should be encouraged to do it. They should also be encouraged to produce French fries that are lower in fat and have a more unsaturated fat. There are many things that the food industry can do that are almost necessary if Americans are going to eat correctly.
We talk a lot about people eating too much hamburgers or too many hamburgers, particularly teenagers. There's nothing really wrong with a hamburger. It's a pretty good source of protein, but the trouble with it is that we tend to eat too many of them, and therefore we tend to get too much fat. Other cultures have lived without nearly as much meat and developed very, very interesting foods. For instance, the Mexicans have put together beans and rice and corn and made a very high-quality protein mix out of those foods, and very good food at that. And the Chinese have used soybeans. And the Middle Easterners have put together a flatbread called pita bread and chickpeas and made something called falafel, which is a very good source of protein. We get the idea that all we can eat is hamburgers, and it's very fatty. And we'd really be better off if we tried some of these other foods.
It takes some effort to think about what we eat, to read labels, to make good choices. But the difference it makes may be good health.
A student should be concerned about what he or she eats for some very simple and basic reasons. See, even though when we are young, when we're in junior high school, 12, 13, 14, 17, 18, 19 years old, we feel like we're going to live forever. We feel like we can leap tall buildings in a single bound, we can outrun a fired bullet, we can do all those things. We are just super beings almost. We just feel good, and naturally you should, because that's part of being young. Now, but that's also a part of being old, you see? You can also feel good when you're old, but the problem is, all of that junk, all of that garbage, all of that stuff that you have been dealing with while you were young makes you feel bad when you're old. You see, the body is a machine. The body is probably the most amazing machine that has ever been made. And just like an automobile, you don't find people putting water in gas tanks of automobiles. You don't find people putting sand in gas tanks of automobiles. You find people putting gas in automobiles, in the gas tank. You find people lubricating. You find them putting oil. People take better care of their cars than they do of their bodies, because they'll put anything in the body, you see? And when you take good care of a car, what happens? The car lives longer and functions better. The same principle is true about the human body. If we treat it right, if we put the things in it that make it function better, then it will last longer at whatever it does, and it will do whatever it does much better. So it's a very simple principle that we need to keep in mind. You will not always be 16 years old. You will not always be 17, 18, or 13 years old. One day, way by and by, you're going to be 29. or 30, you see? And when you're that age, you can be feeling like you're 16. All you have to do is treat the body right. And by treating it right, you just eat things that make it work properly. And by doing that, that means you have to put aside junk, put aside garbage, put aside worthless calories, and eat things that are nutritious.
You know, like I'll cut down on my Cokes and my candy and snacks. I'm going to cut down a whole lot. Because I really feel better since I've been on this diet. You know, I don't feel tired all the time, and I feel more energetic, you know, and stuff like that.
I found out really that I ate more junk food than I thought I did. Like a lot of donuts, a lot of pastries, a lot of everything, milkshakes, everything you can think of I used to eat.
Like in the morning when I used to come to school, you know, I used to feel all blah. And until nutrition time, when I used to have my burrito, that's when I used to start filling up to it. But I realized since the morning when I get up and I have my mother make me eggs and everything for breakfast, you know, and then come home to a good dinner instead of coming home to, like I said, an RC and a Hershey bar, it's a lot different. I felt more energy to get up and do things right at the spur of the moment, you know.
Ends. Yeah, lots of nutrition films from the 70s and 80s, and they all say the same thing. And we each time we come up with ways to kind of like circumvent what we know. Like, I know how to eat healthy. I know it. I know 100% how to eat healthy, but I don't do it. I make those decisions, and I don't respond as much to advertising, but I tell you what I do respond to: salt, fat, sugar. Those are the things, those delicious things that my body, my tongue loves, the mouthfeel. So shame on me. All right, I know many of you have been talking about this in the comments, and so I finally found the film, and we can talk about it, continue talking about it. This is Wet Mounting Pictorial Materials. Enjoy.
Wet mounting is a method of putting cloth backing on paper materials. Materials of many kinds for many uses. Large paper materials need the extra support that cloth provides. Old materials can be restored and preserved by careful wet mounting. So, wet mounting is especially appropriate for display materials that are large, fragile, or frequently used. The wet mounting process is simple. The supplies are readily available. The most important preparations include planning for enough time and space. A large table is the base of operations. It must be very smooth and clean. Often a specially made surface is better. A plywood slab is adequate, but a pressed wood topping makes a smoother, harder surface. Put trim along the edges and a waterproof finish overall. A 3 by 4 foot size will be adequate for most purposes. Select a new map or chart on heavyweight paper for a first try at wet mounting. The inks must be color fast. The backing cloth is unbleached muslin or sheeting. Even a flour sack is usable. It must be larger than the map and the mounting board. The paste can be made from ordinary flour, but a wheat paste is best, the kind made for hanging wallpaper. It should be mold-proof and vermin-proof. The map, the cloth, and the paste combine to make a wet mounting with the help of these supplies. Water is necessary for soaking the muslin and for mixing the paste. A cup of water makes plenty of paste for one large map. A wide brush and a jar for the wheat paste make mixing easy. Later on, these other supplies will be needed. Making the paste is a simple matter of mixing to proper consistency. Perforations in the lid sift the paste and prevent the formation of large lumps. The bristles of the brush break up the small lumps. Continue adding and blending the paste until the mixture has this consistency, like whipped cream. By now, the muslin should be thoroughly wet. New, unwashed material resists water and should be soaked especially well. Wring the material lightly before spreading it on the board. Thorough smoothing will eliminate most of the wrinkles and air pockets. The muslin can now be secured to the board with tacks. Do a pair of adjoining sides together. In this way, the cloth can be kept square with the board. Secure 3 corners first, and then go back to fill in the sides. Take up the slack between corners. Shrinkage will draw the muslin tighter. Now, pull the muslin down along the edge and use plenty of tacks. Continue until both adjoining sides have been tacked back to the first corner. Then finish off with the last corner and the remaining sides. The muslin is now ready. It presents a flat surface and its thread pattern will parallel the edges of the map. Center the map and make register marks before applying paste to the muslin. Last to be prepared is the map. Lay it on a clean surface and dampen it thoroughly from the back side. Heavy paper will absorb a surprising amount of water and stretch considerably. When it becomes limp and flat on the table, the map is ready to be mounted. Now apply the paste. Notice that it goes on the cloth, not on the map, as you might expect. The paste must extend beyond the guide marks. Try to get the paste uniform, but not too thick. By the time the paste has been applied, the map may require some redampening. The map and muslin are now put together. Don't expect the map to fit the guide marks exactly, because dampening has made it slightly larger. Rub it down well from center to sides. This makes it smoother for rolling. Begin at the center and roll both ways to the nearest sides. Use a gentle pressure, leaving ample paste under the map. The next rolling should be at right angles to the first. Always roll perfectly straight and stop just short of the edge so the roller will not get paste on it. The first rolling has stretched the sides out more than the corners, causing undue stress. Relieving this stress will help avoid wrinkles when rolling the corners. Once again, the rolling proceeds from the center out and stops short of the edges. This time, the roller forms an X-shaped pattern. Before, it was like a plus sign. This finishes the rolling, except for the edges. The roller will now have to be cleaned repeatedly unless strips of paper are laid to overlap the edges. The strips effectively shield the roller from squeezed-out paste. Roll the edges lightly, leaving plenty of paste underneath. Continue this rolling all around the edge. Then, the strips can be discarded and the muslin cleaned. The map should also be swabbed lightly with a clean towel. The finished mounting should dry slowly for several hours. Do not attempt to speed up the drying process. When the mounting is completely dry, mark the margins, allowing extra if a hemmed edge is desired. Untack the mounting, pull it loose, and finish the edges. The map will then be ready for use. Other materials may present problems in wet mounting. Here is a sketch on very thin paper. Its colors will smear when dampened. They need a protective coat, such as thin lacquer, plastic, or fixative. Notice that a smooth tabletop like this will do in place of a special board. Be sure to consider the effect of water and tacks on it. Remember that wet mounting takes 3 components. First, the paste. To it can be added a binder or glue size for better adhesion. Muslin is the second component to be prepared. This piece covers the whole table so that several things can be mounted on it. Lastly comes the paper. When it's ready, all these components go together to make a sandwich. The muslin at the bottom of the stack, paste spread in between, and the paper on top. Rolling toward the sides forms a plus shape and causes stress at the corners. Rolling toward the corners forms an X shape and leaves only the edges to finish. They should be rolled all the way around with an easy pressure. Then clean the mounting, check it, and leave it. While the muslin is still wet, other materials can be mounted, like these, the front and back side of a map. Notice how an image shows through from underneath while the map is wet. The folds show too, but drying takes care of all that. There are many ways to display a completed wet mounting. This drawing goes nicely on a window blind roller. Only a lightweight muslin and paper can be rolled up this tightly. The sides should be trimmed flush, but extra space should be allowed at top and bottom to attach the roller and stick. This map is suspended by grommets. They are very sturdy but rather difficult to put on without special tools. Eyelets are easy to sew on and hold well to a hemmed edge. Several wet mountings can be combined in a turnover chart. Here again, handmade and commercial materials have been combined to create an attractive instructional unit, one that can enrich many learning experiences. Other imaginative and serviceable materials can be made for your needs by means of the wet mounting process.
I love these films. They're so incredibly niche. I also love to see the tail end of this, which is that somebody shows up with like a antique map on Antiques Roadshow that has been wet mounted and not done well, And it's like, well, there's all this damage here, and it's too bad that they did this, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, it's just like, you know, in the 90s, 2000s, everybody was laminating stuff. I have a friend who laminated a bunch of his posters, rock posters. And I'm like, dude, at some point, the glue in that lamination is going to yellow, and you're not going to be able to get it out. It's like in there for good. Like you have basically sealed it, and it is not, you know, at some point you're going to be really sad. Anyhow, thanks for tuning in today. We appreciate your eyeballs and your comments. Please, if you like what you saw, hit the thumbs up, hit the like button, subscribe. You can donate via the super thanks button, some cash that we will use to buy stamps. We still mail things, so stamps. You can also go to ko-fi.com/avgeeks or patreon.com/avgeeks. Those are great ways to support us. If you have a short attention span, go to our TikTok, tiktok.com/@av.geeks, and you will see short little nuggets drawn from our films and some of the shows we've done in the past. And they're great to share. They're like little nuggets, little tiny treats. I don't know. But the one thing I do know, there's entirely too much fat, sugar, and salt in those little nugget treats. So be careful. Yeah. So join us tomorrow, Thursday. We'll watch some more stuff. It'll be great. And we will talk soon.